core subject teachers to reapply for their jobs, but also it created some new qualifications for those positions. And what the district was telling the teachers at that time, this plan that they were under this plan they were considering, some staff would not be qualified anymore.
Yeah. Did they say how they were going to quantify that? Who would be unqualified?
Right. So the records we obtained show that the district started meeting with staff to explain these qualifications. They said they would only allow teachers who were certified with 3 years of experience or more to reapply, which that's pretty cut and dry. And the teachers we spoke to, that made sense to them. But then they were also told that the district would be analyzing student growth data. They were told that the district would be analyzing 3 years worth of observation scores and student growth data to determine who was qualified to stay. And to many teachers we spoke to, this was the part that was confusing for them. What student growth data are you looking at? What tests would you be looking at to determine student growth? What's the cut point for what student growth is enough for us to reapply? And we heard that teachers were getting phone calls from the district telling them whether or not they were qualified to reapply. And in some cases, we heard the district would say to one person, okay, under these new qualifications, you're not qualified. And then maybe they come back and say, oh, wait, you are. And the district told us that they really wanted all teachers to remain within the district, that even if you no longer qualify for the positions at Dobie, Burnett, and Webb, they wanted to find a place for you. Emails show that teachers were offered 2 other placements within the district, and they could decline the first offer if they wanted to. But if they declined the second offer, it would be considered a resignation. Although the district says we didn't want anyone to resign and we didn't ask anyone to resign. Data from the district shows that 23 staff members across these campuses chose to resign.
Right. So a lot of confusion here. Sounds like some back and forth, teachers being told one thing and then a couple of weeks later being told another thing. What has the superintendent said about all of this?
We sat down with Superintendent Segura, and when we were kind of painting the picture of what teachers were telling us and that these records were showing us, he said, and I'm going to read what he said so I don't misquote him, but he said, there were times along the way, and I want to apologize for sure, where we made determinations based on the information that we had. And then it became clear once we had feedback from Texas Education Agency or our technical provider that it really needed to be this other thing. And keep in mind, teachers were learning about this plan before it was even officially approved by the school board. I think that was in an effort to not blindside them, but you can imagine how confusing that alone might have been, that the plan isn't approved, but we're already kind of hearing about it. And in one email to impacted staff members, a district official who was helping communicate these plans to staff members said this in an email: I recognize the sense of anxiety that can come with waiting for a decision on what is next. I want to be very clear. No decisions regarding staff placement will be made until there's a recommendation from the board and the board votes. And that was an email that was sent on April 22nd.
So again, we're talking about Burnett, Dobie, and Webb middle schools. We know the board officially did approve the turnaround plans in late June. What was in those plans?
So when you read the turnaround plan, it's much more clear how the district was determining who was qualified to reapply and who wasn't. The turnaround plan that Austin School Board approved and submitted to the TEA in late June said it would only invite, and this is a quote, highly qualified educators to apply at Burnett, Dobie, and Webb. And those rules did extend, again, to those core subject teachers that were already there. Specifically, the district would only consider those who were certified with at least 3 years of experience and who demonstrated student growth in the top 20% district-wide. Teachers would also have to hold a recognized exemplary or master teacher designation. And this goes back to something that's called the teacher incentive allotment. It's really an evaluation system that the district uses, and several school districts have something very similar, but they use this evaluation system to determine who gets, these designations, and then there's money that's attached to that. Right. So they were using that system to make these determinations also. But all in all, the departures of last year's staff it left a lot of roles to fill. The district wrote in that June 26th presentation to the school board that 84% of Dobie's core teaching staff would not be returning for the 2025-26 school year, 53% at Webb Middle School, and 39% at Burnett Middle School.
I want to underscore that because those numbers are shocking in some cases. 84% of teaching staff at Dobie were asked not to return. That's almost all of the teachers at the campus. And of course, this is happening over summer break, so there's not much time to find replacements for those teachers, right?
Correct. And I do want to clarify again, and I know it sounds so specific, but core subject teachers. So there are a lot of teachers at the school, but when you think core subject, think math, science, social studies, the tests that these are the ones who are teaching for the STAR test, right? They're teaching these core subjects that will be, recorded and used to determine, the growth at a campus.
Right.
But yes, what we found is that after removing all the people who didn't meet those standards from their roles, there were a lot of vacancies that the district had to fill very quickly. Because take a step back again. This is June 26th that the plan is approved. Teachers had already kind of been hearing what's coming down the pipeline, but then school starts August 19th.
Yeah.
So they've got the summer to figure this out. So by July 31st, that's a little more than 2 weeks before the first day of school, district officials said there were 51 vacancies between all three of these campuses. The listings on the district's vacancy board, which dashboard that's posted online, they listed positions for math, social science, Spanish teachers. The district sent an email on August 6th, actually. And so August 19th, school starts. August 6th, this email went out asking eligible teachers at other Austin ISD campuses to transfer to one of the underperforming campuses. They knew the pool that they had to work with within their own district, and they were trying to see who would be willing to come to these campuses to help them. District data shows 3 days before the start of school, there were still 13 vacancies across the three schools. And a spokesperson for the district did tell us that some of these roles could be intentionally left vacant because of enrollment at any of these campuses.
Yeah, so a very busy summer for district leaders, a kind of rushed timeline here. Do we know why they took so long to make these decisions?
Superintendent Segura addressed this in our conversation. He said the district chose to wait until late June to submit its turnaround plan to the Texas Education Agency. He said it was because they wanted to engage more with the community about these proposed changes. But he did say in exchange, the district got a late start on hiring.
Yeah. So a lot of new core teachers coming to these three schools. Again, we're talking about Dobie, Burnett, and Webb Middle Schools in Austin ISD. Do we know how the district is going to measure success and if things are actually improving at these schools?
Superintendent Segura was clear that this is a big task in front of these school districts because, to step back a little, Dobie, Burnett, and Webb all have F ratings, but there's a number assigned to that as well.
Right.
So Burnett, if we're basing it off of 2025 accountability ratings, kind of has the furthest to go. They have a 54. Dobie and Webb are right there. I know
close to a D rating.
Right. So a 60 is a D. And of course, we want better than a D, but that is important in the context of what the state would have the authority to do. And Christopher and you and I have been doing a lot of work on this, but if these campuses, they all need to get a D to prevent the TEA from coming in and, appointing a new superintendent or doing some of those more severe interventions. But really, they need a C in order to kind of restart the count. Because remember, we said it would take 5 consecutive Fs for this higher level of intervention from the state. So if they get a D, it would prevent the intervention from happening the next year. But if they were to get a C, it kind of means
it starts the clock over, right?
A fresh start.
Yeah.
Let's start again. And it means that the campus has improved, that they're doing better, that they're getting better scores. But to go back to your question, part of this plan is for the staff, the new staff, and those who are coming back to go through intensive training. Both teachers and principals are going to be provided additional days of professional development at the beginning of the year, targeted and differentiated opportunities throughout the year to get that training in. They're going to be undergoing monthly observations and coaching throughout the year. They're going to have quarterly deep dives. This is what the turnaround plan says, into the upcoming curriculum that they have to teach for core teachers. And this is really because AISD does have a backup plan. Like, this is part A of the year's plan, but the board approved what's called an 1882 contingency. Basically, the district is going to review student performance again throughout, but really there's going to be a time mid-year where they're going to look at reading and math progress. And if it's not making it toward what their set goals are, the district has the option to activate this 1882 partnership. And that's where the district will collaborate with an external partner to operate identified campuses. We've seen this on Mendez, for instance, that has something like this. So again, Superintendent Segura said he is going to do whatever he can to make sure that they can maintain some local control over the district.
And I think it's important to point out here, Austin ISD received a C rating overall, right? But, the state intervention that we're talking about, this possible state intervention, that comes into play when any individual campus receives 5 F ratings in a row, no matter what the district-wide rating is.
That's right. It would only take one campus not to make these not to stay at an F to trigger this.
Right. So let's broaden out here. Let's look at the district-wide picture for all of AISD, because even if these 3 schools that we've been talking about do improve, there are several more schools, 12 of them in fact, that have now received 3 F ratings in a row. And again, you need 5 in a row to trigger this sort of state takeover of the district. Does AISD have any sort of plan to improve the picture at those schools who are slightly behind where Dobie, Webb, and Burnett are right now?
The answer is yes, but we don't know that much about it. So even before the 2024 and 2025 ratings were released, the district acknowledged that they were going to have to start working on similar turnaround plans for the other schools that are nearing a very similar situation as Burnett, Dobie, and Webb. And I know this is a lot of rules to keep up with, but remember we talked about at the beginning that 2 Fs at a campus would trigger the need for a turnaround plan. So we already know that they're going to have to create them for those, I think you said 12 campuses that have 2 F ratings consecutively. So far, we don't have a clear picture of what those turnaround plans will look like. Will it be a similar model to what we see at Dobie, Burnett, and Webb? Will it be a little bit different? We know that the community cares about the specifics. So it'll be interesting to see where they land. But, the state, and specifically Education Commissioner Mike Morath, he's expressed concerns about the picture that A through F ratings paint across the district. Morath told us recently that there are some factors that appear to be, and this is a quote from him, that appear to be unique to Austin ISD that are deeply problematic in terms of supporting the most at-risk families. For his part, Superintendent Segura wants to improve schools. He acknowledges that there are problems, but he says he wants to make sure the district gets to do it their way. He wants to make sure that the community here, the elected school board, the administration that's in place gets to be the one to make the decisions about how to get those campuses to improve.
And of course, this is all happening with the context that the district is considering consolidating or closing some campuses as well.
Right. At one point in the interview, because I've been reporting about education in Austin for the last 4 years, and AISD has been through a lot, right? Like, they have had state intervention when it comes to their special education program, where the TEA found that they were not doing timely evaluations for students who had been identified as maybe needing, special education services. They're still trying to get to the place that the state wants them to be in, and honestly, that federal and state laws require them to be at. And they've made a lot of strides there, according to the data that the district has provided. Now they are dealing with consolidation at the same time, as you mentioned, that they're dealing with trying to make sure these campuses can improve and they can keep local control. And I asked him, do you think in your tenure you're going to see the end of this, where these things are all righted? And he has a really optimistic view of it. He thinks that they are further through the difficult parts of this than they are, to the start, to the beginning of the mess. Yeah. So he has an optimistic view of it, and he says he has a lot of faith in these campuses and in the teams that are in place right now.
All right, Kelly. Well, thank you so much for your reporting. If you would like to see how your school is rated, we do have interactive maps at KXAN.com. And of course, the TEA does not only rate Austin ISD, they have to rate every public school campus and district in the state of Texas. So you can find how every district in the KXAN viewing area is rated. There's 58 of them. Again, you can find those interactive maps over at KXAN.com. Thank you for joining us this week on Inside the Investigation. I'm Christopher Adams. We'll see you next time.